Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Watch my video and subscribe my channel. A fuming Finn confronts Grace, and Eric pushes the panic button about Nick's possible proposal. In Italy, Brooke assures Ridge that she's waiting for Nick. Ridge takes this time to finally apologize for being a jerk when she took the CEO role. He was mistaken and never meant to bring her harm. They establish that they'll always love each other. She coaxes, "Is that all you came here to say?" Brooke leans in and repeats, "What is it you really want to tell me?" as Nick appears. He chortles that they have plans to spend the day together, and Brooke walks off with him. In a suite, Eric accepts a call from Donna, who misses her honey bear. He gets immediately into complaining about Nick Marone showing there with an agenda and an engagement ring. Donna feels somehow astonished that Brooke was seen kissing him. She orders her husband to find Ridge right now. Meanwhile, Brooke and Nick wander about Naples eating gelatos. Episode number 9581. When Ridge shows up, he's agitated. Eric discovers Brooke went off with Brooke and complains about time running out. He warns that Nick is going to propose. More. B&B's absolutely trashing. Why? In the harbor, Nick shows Brooke his boat as they prepare to sail off on an adventure. Nick pulls out his phone to check if the boat's ready to sail and tells Brooke they're all set. Just the two of us. Brooke, Nick, B&B. Finn grows more suspicious. At Bill's apartment, Liam's head wrap is back, and he's relocated to the couch. His father tells him he's so delighted he's going to be okay. Finn enters with a doctor bag in hand, and Bill says that Liam's astonishing recovery is a miracle, thanks to Grace Buckingham. Liam, Bill, B&B. Finn warns of probable complications, and Liam and Bill both vow the patient won't overdo it. Finn wonders whether Dr. Buckingham has gone over the requirement for physical therapy with them. Bill replies she hasn't and declares another miracle. Finn, frowning with clearly rising misgivings, grunts, Yeah. Another miracle. Finn, Liam, Bill, B&B. More. B&B weekly preview video. Finn adds that this experimental medicine could transform the way they treat all tumors. He can't believe he was oblivious of it and that it came seemingly out of nowhere. Liam's fine with being a guinea pig, and Bill's delighted he could give him hope. Finn reels when he discovers Bill paid $1 million for the procedure. He begins probing Bill about who he paid, but he shrugs that he didn't pay attention. Liam reflects on Grace saving him after what her ex-husband did to him and Hope. Liam remembers it was to pay off gambling debts, and a lighting seems to go on in Finn's mind. What's going on with Grace? In her office, Grace hollers at someone through the phone that this is over. "Never bother me, or my daughters again. Do you hear me?" She disconnects and nervously looks at head scans on her laptop. Grace, B&B. A nurse knocks and enters, and Grace snaps at her. She then apologizes and admits she's under a lot of pressure right now. Once alone, she picks up the phone and presumably confirms exactly that as she tells her daughter Paris how much she loves her, that there is nothing she wouldn't do for her and her sisters. After, she looks at Liam's scans again and then deletes his medical history. Back in his office, Finn gets on his laptop and finds everything in Liam's file since his brain bleed has been wiped. Meanwhile, in her office, Grace thinks back through telling Finn that Liam had an incurable brain tumor and selling Bill on the experimental procedure. Suddenly, Finn appears. With a bit of a scary grin, he reports that he was just at Bill's checking on Liam after such an invasive treatment. She claims he's lucky. Finn thinks he's also lucky Bill has $1 million to pay. What's going on, Grace? I want answers, and I want them now. The sun rose over Italy with the warmth of nostalgia hanging to the Mediterranean air, the golden dawn casting soft glows over the pastel cliffs and cobblestone alleys that wove through Naples like the tangled strands of destiny itself. Brooke Logan stood poised at the terrace of her villa, the sea breeze tickling her golden hair as she gently notified Ridge Forrester she was waiting for Nick Marone. Ridge had arrived unannounced, and his gloomy presence, eyes dark with a mix of sadness and latent passion, spoke volumes before he even uttered a word. I was a jerk, Ridge finally confessed, his voice gravelly with guilt. You didn't deserve that. Brooke folded her arms, searching his face for sincerity, and as he stammered through his apology for the way he handled her appointment as Forrester CO, they both acknowledged something deeper. Their love, always smoldering beneath the surface, still survived the decades of betrayal, reunion, and distance. But just as Ridge drew in closer, just as he faltered on the edge of saying the very thing Brooke needed to hear, Nick Marone emerged like a specter from the past, sun-kissed and smirking with possessive confidence. We've got plans, he chuckled, offering out his arm. Brooke, her eyes never quite leaving Ridge's, walked off with Nick as Ridge stood in agonized quiet, every heartbeat sounding like the tick of a countdown clock. Back at the Forrester suite, Eric Forrester feverishly clenched his phone, his voice harsh with irritation as he briefed Donna on the situation. Nick was in Italy with a plan and, most alarmingly, an engagement ring. Donna gasped at the news of Brooke kissing him and didn't hesitate to command Eric, "Find Ridge." Now, Eric, hardly suppressing his own panic, paced like a lion in a cage. Meanwhile, Brooke and Nick wandered around the streets of Naples, enjoying gelatos and memories. She chuckled at his quips, but her mind lingered on Ridge's almost confession. At the harbor, Nick took her on board his boat, his every motion dripping with intention. As they prepared to set sail, Nick texted his captain, ensuring everything was ready. Just the two of us, he continued. Brooke glanced out across the lake, unsure if she was drifting into something familiar or something terrible. Thousands of miles away in Los Angeles, the tension grew even more dangerous. Liam Spencer reclined on Bill's couch, his head bandaged in a fresh bandage. Bill Spencer lingered like an overprotective shadow, marveling at his son's miracle recovery, crediting Grace Buckingham for saving Liam's life with some magical, experimental brain cancer treatment. When Finn arrived, medical bag in hand, his demeanor immediately soured upon hearing Grace's name. He barely managed a cordial greeting before his tone shifted. Sharp, distrustful, clinical. He saw the absence of any detailed physical rehabilitation plan, and when Bill laughed it off as another miracle, Finn's eyes focused with laser-like focus. Yeah, another miracle, he muttered. Finn fought to keep up his professional approach as he questioned the legality of the operation Liam had reportedly had. A treatment so advanced, so experimental, it would change the face of oncology, and yet he'd never heard of it? It didn't make sense. He pressed further, and Bill, frustratingly flippant, acknowledged he'd spent $1 million for it. $1 million. Finn's warning bells screamed. Bill couldn't even name the institution or the research group behind the treatment. Then Liam, ever the innocent pawn, joined in, remembering Grace assisting him despite what her ex-husband, Reese Buckingham, had done in the past to him and Hope. That comment, that tiny reminder, made something click for Finn. Reese's scams, Reese's false adoptions, Reese's gambling debts. It was genetic. A horrible concept began to grow. At the hospital, Grace Buckingham was already cracking under the pressure. Screaming into the phone, she threatened an unseen threat to never touch her or her girls again. Her fingers trembled as she terminated the call and glanced at Liam's brain scans on her laptop. Scans she knew were manufactured. When a nurse knocked, Grace lashed out reflexively, then backpedaled into a phony apology. She was disintegrating, and it showed. Alone again, Grace contacted her daughter Paris, spilling forth impassioned confessions, how she'd do anything to protect her girls. Then, after a lengthy pause, she destroyed Liam's medical data, wiping the digital slate clean with the subtle cruelty of someone who believed she was doing the right thing. Meanwhile, Finn sat alone in his office, researching deeper. When he entered Liam's medical file and found it inexplicably vacant since the day of his brain bleed, a chill went over him. Grace had erased the track. He knew it. Now it was war. Without hesitating, Finn burst into Grace's office like a force of nature. She tried to maintain control, but his piercing smile disarmed her instantly. "I was just at Bill's," Finn stated calmly, dangerously, checking in on Liam after such an invasive, experimental procedure. "Funny thing, no one knows anything about it. But you do, Grace. So I'll ask again, what's going on?" Back in Italy, the time bomb was ticking. Eric eventually spotted Ridge, and all but shouted at him to stop Nick. "He's going to propose," Eric insisted. Ridge, though startled, paused. Was it too late? Had he let Brooke slip away again? On the boat, Nick opened a velvet box and gazed at Brooke with a confident expression. She gasped gently, then slowly turned to the ocean. Her heart, divided between Ridge's doubt and Nick's brazen conviction, beat in her chest. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. Back in L.A., Grace tried to bluff. She threw every argument at Finn she could find. Confidential therapy, patient privacy, proprietary scans, HIPAA compliance. But Finn didn't budge. He told her he knew about the destroyed records. He knew about the $1 million price tag. And now he demanded complete access, or he'd take it to the medical board. Grace cracked. Her eyes welled up with tears, but Finn didn't blink. He inquired, "Did you ever have any scans at all? Or did you falsify them to gain money from Bill?" Her silence screamed the truth. As the sun sank over both Italy and Los Angeles, the lives of the Forresters, the Spencers, and the Buckinghams poised on the edge of implosion. Grace felt her career, and maybe her freedom, were hanging by a thread. Finn went out of her office with a mission: reveal the truth, save Liam, and take down anyone who played with life and death like it was a game. Back in Italy, Ridge stood at the coastline, eyeing the horizon with sorrowful eyes, unsure if he'd just lost Brooke forever. And Brooke? She stood on the deck of Nick's yacht, the velvet box in one hand and her past in the other, wondering whether this was a new beginning, or a tragic reprise of every mistake she'd ever made. And all throughout the world, the actors moved forward, some seeking justice, some seeking love, and some simply attempting to survive the repercussions of their own duplicity. Bold and the Beautiful sees Liam Spencer's tumor taking on a life of its own after the script prompts Finn to make a catastrophic mistake on the CBS screen last week. B&B fans will watch to see how the soap handles it in next week's episodes. It seems the mistake had to do with what Finn observed under Liam's bandage, because what he saw should not have been there. Bold and the Beautiful. Where, oh where is Liam Spencer's tumor? Bold and the Beautiful fans are eager to move on from Liam Spencer's tumor storyline. After all of Finn's suspicions last week, many presume there was never a tumor in the first place. But we also watched as Grace Buckingham wielded a scalpel on Liam's head. So what was that about? Liam went from having no chance against a death sentence prediction to a fast-tracked procedure that miraculously cured him. But then the story took another turn. It looks as if Grace collected Bill Spencer's $1 million as a charge to take out a tumor that was never there. B&B. Finn sizes it up, but wait a minute. Finn had his suspicions last week on Bold and the Beautiful. Then, after he had a glance under Liam's bandage, he noticed signs that something was awry. Finn added that the incision he saw was too small for the type of surgery Liam apparently underwent. But what Finn should have said was, "Oops, I am gazing at the wrong side." Bold and the Beautiful had Finn peeking behind the bandage on the left side of Liam's skull. But the scene where Grace takes the scalpel to Liam's head, she slices into the back right side of his head. Bold and the Beautiful snafu. Finn looked quite professional when looking behind the bandage. But Bold and the Beautiful didn't spot their blunder. Instead, they allowed the scene go onto the screen with Finn looking in the wrong area. Then, he shared his concerns that the incision is smaller than he would expect for the type of brain surgery he had. The winds that swept across the Bay of Naples carried the scent of old romances, unresolved regrets, and futures that refused to stay buried as Brooke Logan stood beneath the cerulean sky, eyes locked on the horizon, awaiting Nick Marone with an expectant air that belied the storm brewing within her. When Ridge Forrester arrived unannounced, sun-kissed and tight-jawed, his energy charged with decades of unresolved tension, he stood like a specter of decisions unmade, and the moment shimmered with the weight of what had not been uttered. "I was a jerk," Ridge eventually said, his voice roughened by regret and suppressed pride, and Brooke's blue eyes shimmered as she folded her arms, offering him both forgiveness and a challenge. He informed her she never deserved the way he responded when she took the CEO job. She didn't flinch, didn't boast. She waited for something more. And Ridge, inspired by the lady who had withstood every one of his ego-driven blunders, nearly gave her everything. But fate had other intentions. Before Ridge could speak what hung on the edge of his heart, Nick arrived, sunburned, charming, territorial, with a grin that screamed possession. "We've got plans," he remarked nonchalantly, as though Ridge were just another passerby in Brooke's revolving door of admirers. Brooke hesitated for barely a second, her eyes lingering on Ridge, then took Nick's arm and walked off into the winding Italian alleyways, leaving Ridge horrified, furious, and petrified. Elsewhere in the city, Eric Forrester barked into his phone like a guy seeing the empire disintegrate. "He's going to propose," he shouted to Donna, who was safe back in L.A., missing her honey bear, but not too preoccupied to panic over Brooke's lip lock with Nick. Eric's face was beet red, his voice raspy with urgency as he demanded Ridge stop the inevitable. Nick had arrived with a purpose, and now it was clear. It involved a velvet box and a question Ridge never had the guts to ask. Brooke and Nick were already sailing toward the horizon, gelatos in hand, laughter booming off the bay as if nothing from their history could rise to poison this moment. But Brooke's smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and her fingers trembled slightly when Nick offered her a flute of champagne. Somewhere beneath the polished sheen of enjoyment was a woman still striving for clarity, still plagued by what Ridge had almost spoken. Back in Los Angeles, a different type of tempest was developing, one founded not in romance but in medicine, money, and betrayal. At Bill Spencer's mansion, Liam Spencer rested on the couch, bandaged, recovering miraculously fast for a man who had purportedly undergone experimental brain surgery. Bill lingered like a storm cloud with a father complex, proud and wholly ignorant that his pride might be disguising the biggest mistake of his life. Enter John Finnegan, doctor, husband, and moral compass, who arrived with his medical bag and an increasingly skeptical frown. Bill hailed Grace Buckingham for the miracle, stating she had transformed everything with an operation no one else dared to perform. Finn's smile was forced, his tone harsh. "She didn't even mention physical therapy," he asked. Bill shrugged. "Another miracle, huh?" Finn muttered, his instincts screaming. This wasn't just unusual, it was impossible.